Hello and welcome to the Heat Check, the Miami Herald's Miami Heat Show. I'm David Wilson. I'm joined, as always, on the other line by Anthony Chang, our Heat beat writer here at the Herald. Anthony, 10 games left in the regular season, and then it's probably playing time. How you feeling?
I feel like I still don't know what this team is.
I know.
So it feels a lot like last season.
Yeah, every time we felt like all year we were like coming up on that chance to finally see what this team looked like. It was something went wrong. A lot of injuries, obviously. And then, Jimmy Butler not playing because he's sick on Tuesday night. It has been just not like a season from hell or nightmare season, I don't think, for the Heat, because, they're still going to make at least the play-in, certainly. Bam played pretty much the whole year. I can't complain about anything with his availability. Jimmy, I mean, it was kind of what you expected, but as you said, 2 straight years we go into the end of the regular season with kind of no idea of what this team really might be. And I don't know, I think we're all coasting off vibes a little bit, right? We've just got we know what this team can do because we've seen it in the past, but it's all, we're kind of on like a wing and a prayer with trying to determine what this is actually going to look like come April once the playoffs kick off.
Yeah, and I don't think this is the case, but it's almost like the Heat like this. Like they just like keeping teams in suspense, and then they just pounce.
It's very funny. It's very funny that this has become the reputation when 2 years ago they were the one seed. It's not totally. I mean, it is, I guess, because the year before.
The year before they were like the 5 seed
or something.
Oh yeah, that's that.
And then the bubble year they were a 5. So
5, yeah.
The year they were the 1 seed has been an outlier. But it also, they went from that to now being this team that is every year.
It's almost like Jimmy said, that was too hard. We could do this from the 7 seed. Why are we wearing ourselves out in the regular season? This is fine. We'll just be the 7 seed. We could take a break in the regular season. And honestly, that's what I've been telling people. This team is in such a unique situation where they've kind of earned the benefit of the doubt until the season ends and they lose. Let's say they lose in the first round, then obviously everyone could come out and say this was a rough season. But until that happens, after what they did last year, after what they did in the bubble, kind of have to just let it play out, because it's a unique team that has done this before, and then in the playoffs they just turn it on and they've proven they can do it. So at this point, who am I to say they can't do it again? As unlikely as it seems at this point.
Yeah, I know I've seen a kind of sentiment among Heat fans that it's kind of been a miserable regular season. Miserable might be too strong, but it's hard to care that much about the regular season.
It hasn't been fun. No.
And it's hard to care that much because I don't know, sometimes you watch, and it's not like the Heat don't play hard on any given night, but they clearly don't care that much about the regular season standings, where they wind up on a night-to-night basis. They're playing hard, they're trying to win, obviously, but whoever is, whether it's Jimmy not playing, guys, I'm sure guys are they're being cautious with guys as much as possible, right? They're always tinkering, and I understand from a Heat fan perspective, it's playoffs are going to be really fun. Regular season might be a little bit of a slog, even more than for, considering how good the Heat are as a franchise over the last couple of years. The fact that every regular season has kind of turned into a slog, it's kind of it's pretty funny.
Yeah, and it's just tough. It's tough to make really any have to write 5 takeaways every game.
Yeah,
and it's against Golden State. Okay, you write 5 takeaways, but what do you expect? How do you expect to keep up, even though Golden State isn't Golden State, the normal Golden State team this year? They're not as good, but how do you expect to keep up with Steph, Clay, and that offense when you're missing Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, Kevin Love? Those are probably your 3 best outside shooters, your best offensive player that you run your offense through in Jimmy. Mm-hmm. How do you expect, they go 1 for 16 on threes in the second half and they score 35 points or something in the second half? Okay, yeah, it was a bad offensive performance, but what exactly do you expect from a team missing 4 of their best offensive players on the same night? And that's been the case now for the last 2 weeks. And maybe Jimmy's played some of those games, but Duncan's missed 4 games. Tyler's missed 16 or so. I think Kevin's missed 14 games. they haven't had their guys. So yes, they've lost 7 of 11. They're in 7th place, but they haven't been healthy. So I don't know what you expect. Like I see these tweets about like, why is he starting Patty Mills? Why is Patty Mills and DeLon Wright playing together? Like, what do you expect? They have no one available.
Yeah.
Someone has to play. So it's just been a weird stretch where it's really hard. Like you just you go to the game, you say, okay, well then if they won, fine. If they lost, fine. But you can't really take anything away from it because they're missing half the roster.
Yeah, and it's really a bummer because I think when they traded for Terry Rozier, in I guess that's almost like a month and a half ago now, almost 2 months ago.
Yeah, 2 months ago.
Yeah, pretty much. We were really hoping, like at that point, we were having a lot of the same conversations we're having now, right? Like, all right, we haven't gotten to see this team, but now and since then in particular, like we just haven't seen them because Tyler Hero's missed what you said, 16 games. I don't know. Has there been a night where they've had like Jimmy, Bam, Tyler, and Terry Rozier all together? Like, I think we can count that on one hand, right?
Maybe a handful of games, probably.
Yeah.
I don't think it's much. No, and because Tyler's played one game since the All-Star break, and Jimmy missed a few because of personal reasons before the break.
And what Rozier was around for like a week,
like 10 games,
the All-Star,
like
8 2 weeks before the All-Star break, something like that. Yeah.
So I would say a handful of games, maybe. They've all played together, and you have to build. So I would think chemistry like that matters, and it's gonna be even if like Tyler does come back and they find a way to get healthy entering the playoffs. It's not ideal that like their first extended stretch together is gonna come against, let's say, Milwaukee in the first round. Like that's not great. But that's the situation they're in. And last year, the regular season was pretty miserable too. I don't know if people remember that, but I remember having this similar conversation to what we had last year of like, God, this regular season's been rough. Like, how are they? There's no way they could do it. They had a negative point differential last year. I think actually this year.
Honestly, like I feel better about. I mean, part of it is the skewed like having the memories of last season, but I feel a lot better about the Heat going into the playoffs this year than I did last year. I mean, I thought. Remember they were 4 minutes away or whatever from losing in the play-in, from getting eliminated. And then, I think going to that Bucks, we famous, or was it Barry and I? I think Barry and I famously recorded when it was down.
You were like end of the season podcast.
And I don't know, I don't think any Heat fan went into that those playoffs with any kind of optimism, and it's certainly going to be greater, I think, this year. Because of what they did last year, but also because honestly the teams played better than they did last year. Like you said, they had a negative point differential.
They seem deeper, like in theory.
Yeah, they seem deeper. They're going to finish with a better record, I think. How many games did they end up winning last year in the regular season?
I think they're one game better than where they were last year at this point. Yeah. They're like right there. But they probably will finish like one game better.
Yeah, they're going to have a better point differential. Like you said, the roster just looks better. Their offense is it's not good this year, but it was like really rough last year with the complete lack of shooting for the most part.
They had 44 wins last year.
They're 39
so they basically have to go
now.
5.
If they go 500, they'll match that. Yeah,
they should do better. I mean, with their schedule, which we'll get to now, they should finish at least like for 45, 46 wins.
Yeah. So I'm gonna feel better about them, unless they like totally like collapse down in this final week of the season. Like, I'm gonna probably feel better about them going to the playoffs this year than I did last year. Now, obviously, part of what made last year so enjoyable, anytime we go to the finals, it's going to be fun. But the fact that it totally came out of nowhere, that now I think
it's not going to happen again. No.
Well, yeah. Like the expectations are going to be higher. Like if they lose in the first round, if they lost in the first round last year, people would have been frustrated, but it wouldn't have been unexpected. If they lose in the first round this year.
Yeah, everyone's going to be like, see, that's why you take the regular season seriously.
People are going to be really annoyed, and I won't be able to blame them because it will feel like a wasted season, I think, if that happens.
Yeah, no, that's. I think if it ends that way, that's when people can fire off their takes and criticize it. Like, but until then, it's just really hard again because and I said this entering the season. I remember talking to Barry and maybe even you. privately saying like, how are we gonna make it so this regular season matters after what happened last year? Like
I know.
the regular season doesn't matter anymore because as long as he gets to the playoffs, they're fine. And here we are, like living and dying again. It doesn't matter. Like we're all caring about the regular season still. We're all living and dying by each game, each result. Twitter is still crazy, so they still found a way to make the regular season still matter. But until the playoffs come and until they if they get swept in the first round like they did against the Bucks 2 or 3 years ago, then that's going to be something. That'll be something obviously. But until that happens,
of course, they didn't even change that much after that happened. And
no,
I guess was that the offseason they got
they got
Lowry.
Kyle, they got Lowry, yeah.
And then they ended up having the
True
best record in the East next year. So
yeah. So this is year 5 of the build, right? It's really hard. There aren't many builds that last 6 seasons when you don't win a championship in today's NBA. So if this doesn't end in a championship, there are going to be questions this team is going to have to answer. There will probably be changes, I'm assuming, because again, it's really hard to imagine that doesn't bring back the same exact core for the 6th year if they lose in the first or second round. But again, until that happens, I think that's another episode for another day.
Yeah, exactly. We'll wait for that. Yeah, I guess the problem this year, the East does seem quite a bit better than it does last year. So that's going to be the challenge, I think. And if you're more pessimistic this year than last year, that's the reason for it. As we're talking now, the Heat are tied for 7th place with the 76ers with 10 games to go. They are, as we're talking, a game and a half back of Indiana. Indiana's playing right now, so by the time this goes up, the Heat will either be a game out of 7th or out of 6th, or 2 games out of 6th with, again, 10 games to play. You pointed out, and honestly, we've been saying this for about 2 months, pretty much since the All-Star break, I think, right? Was like the Heat have one of the
easiest
2 or 3 easiest schedules. Right now, they're second easiest schedule left in the NBA. What's your confidence level that this team can get out of the play and in these last 3 weeks of the regular season?
I still think they have a good shot. And it's hard. It's crazy. I feel like it's crazy. I know. It's not crazy saying that at this point because they're so injured and like they haven't won games they probably should have won.
They're 500 since going back how far?
I think the last 40 games might be like 20-20 or something like that.
Yeah, and they've had, as we said, they've had one of the easiest schedules in the league for a lot of that.
Yeah.
Stretch.
But again, they're injured, so what do we take from it?
Yeah. That's true.
Jimmy's missed like 10 of those games. Like Bam has missed a handful of those games. Tyler's missed most of them. It's just really tough to take anything. But the point is, like, they've been a mediocre team. For whoever's been available, like the bottom line is they've been a mediocre team pretty much the entire season. But I just think their schedule works in their favor. Obviously, they're gonna have to. They basically have 4 gimmies on their schedule, which nothing's a gimme for the C team. Mm-hmm. But they play Portland on Friday. That should be a win at home. Yep. They play the Wizards in Washington on Sunday. The Wizards already beat them in Miami. I don't think Washington will beat them twice.
Hey, City's gonna be fired up that they're not moving.
That's true, and I'm happy about that actually. But again, we can talk about that in the offseason, David, because I know you probably have some thoughts on that. But so those should be 2 gimmies, and they close the season with 2 games against Toronto. Final 2 games at home against the Raptors, which are gonna kind of want to lose because I think they have to finish like a bottom 6 or bottom 7 record to keep their pick this year. Mm-hmm. So if they're like on the fringe there, there's incentive there for them to lose those games. Those are 4 out of the 10 that they should win. Then you throw in there like a game against Atlanta, which Atlanta's playing for something. They should beat Atlanta. There's just some tough games in Knicks, Dallas on the second half of back-to-back.
Yeah, they have two really big like toss or swing games against Philly and at Indiana.
Those are the 2 big games. If they want to avoid the play-in, they're probably going to have to win both of those games, which they will probably be. I would think they're probably, if they're healthy, big if, they should be favored in both those games.
Well, especially Philly's at home.
Probably without Embiid.
Embiid probably won't be back yet. Yeah, that's the case.
And then Indy
got to take advantage while he's still out.
Indy, if you have Jimmy Butler and Bam, you're probably favored in that game, considering Indiana hasn't been playing great. They've been playing better like last week, but for the most part, like since the Halliburton hasn't been Halliburton for like the last month. He came back from the injury, so they still control their own destiny even after all this to avoid the play-in. But they're gonna have. I would think they have to get to 46 wins to probably get that 6th spot. They're at 39 right now. That means they have to go 7-3. Not easy for a team that's been basically 500 for the last 3 months. But the schedule will help them, and we'll see if they can do it. I say they do it again because of the schedule and because I think Jimmy's gonna be back soon, which was a short-term illness. I think Duncan will probably be back soon. I think Love is gonna be back soon. Tyler probably another week or so, but I think they're gonna get healthier. So my prediction will be they get the 6th seed and they face the Knicks in the first round. That's my prediction.
I think that's what Heat fans would be ecstatic about that, right?
Oh yeah, that'd be fun. I think Heat fans will say that Cleveland is probably the easier matchup. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think both will be tough. I think both teams kind of give the Heat some problems for different reasons. But I think the Knicks series would be fun, considering
everyone.
Obviously, the history between the two teams and what happened last season too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone, Knicks fans would love a shot at the Heat. Heat fans would love a shot at the Knicks. It's a marketable series. Like you're not getting shunted off to NBA TV in that one. I don't think. So
no.
It's kind of it's like a. Yeah, like you said, like people were last year when it came along. I think people were really looking forward to it. Injuries kind of, I think, robbed that series of being as compelling as it could have been. Obviously, Jimmy, that's where he got hurt. But at the start of the playoffs this year, hopefully everyone will be healthier and this Knicks team's obviously much better than they were last year too. From this recent stretch, anything. I don't know. Like we keep saying, it's so hard to make any assessments off this team. But this latest run, Jimmy's been out with the illness, like you said. Still waiting on Tyler Hero to get back.
Yeah.
500 basically for the last month, essentially. Anything that we since the All-Star break that you feel like we can actually take away as a lesson about? Have we learned anything that will be important come playoff time since the All-Star break?
I think the most interesting development, well, two interesting developments that are fans I'm sure love, and it's crazy to say we're in a season where Bam is now taking and making threes.
Yeah.
And Jovic is proving to be a reliable starting power forward.
Mm-hmm.
And they're fighting.
I know. It's crazy.
If you would have told me that before the season, Bam's gonna start making and taking making threes, and
Jovic is gonna 50% from three, in the last
yeah.
And he's
he took three. I mean, some of it's because they don't have 3-point shooters available, so he has to take three. Someone has to take
two the other night, right? Last week.
He had 2 last week. I think it was in Philly. It was his first multi-3 game.
Yeah.
But it looks. I mean, we always said he could be a 3-point shooter. He has good form. He's a good free throw shooter. He has that. He has the ability to do that, and it's just interesting. It's not going to save the Heat's offense or all of a sudden make the Heat a top 5 offense, but interesting developments. I would say that number one. And then Jovic, again, I don't know if he's going to start in the playoffs or stay the starter in the playoffs because he is a player that I guess could be exposed. He's so young, 20 years old. He plays the Celtics in Milwaukee. They could hunt him. But he's proven to be reliable. He's shooting the 3-ball well. I think he was shooting close to 40% recently, as of yesterday from 3 this season. He's holding his own for the most part defense. Is he a lockdown defender? No, but he uses his size pretty well at this point, to at least be a deterrence. And he's a good rebounder, good passer. He pushes the pace. There's something definitely there. The fact that he was not in the rotation at all, and it looked like another just developmental year for him, and now he's pretty much become the full-time starting power forward, and probably at least going to start the playoffs in that role. We'll see if he stays in it. That's a really notable development. So that's been 2 positive things that's kind of come from these last few weeks, despite kind of his average stretch. And also, I'm trying to see what the defense has been since the All-Star break. The defense ranks 7 since the break. So they've had a very, very good defense, over the past month or two. Ever since that losing streak, pretty much. For the past 2 months, they've had one of the top defenses in the NBA. It's the problem is the offense is, again, the issue. That has been the issue. We've known that since the start of the season. That was going to be the biggest kind of obstacle for this team to get to where they wanted to go. They're 20th in offense since the All-Star break. That's just not good enough to contend. They caught lightning in the bottle last playoffs. They got, started getting hot from three. They were like the best 3-point shooting team in the playoffs. Jimmy turned into Michael Jordan, and that changed everything.
Right.
Can we expect that again? I don't know, but the offense again is kind of their biggest weakness right now. If they can't, even in the playoffs, like I know things slow down, but if they have the 20th most efficient offense, that's just not gonna. You're not gonna win many series like that.
Is there an explanation for, you mentioned obviously part of it is just maybe there aren't a lot of shooters left, but Bam's sudden willingness to pull it from deep?
I asked Bam, and he said, "I just woke up one day and just said I'm gonna shoot threes." And I said, "Are you serious?" He's like, "No, I'm serious." Like I literally, there was no conversation. I just said, "I'm gonna wake up one day." I just woke up and said, "I'm gonna shoot threes today." And he said the first one I think was against Jokic against Denver a few weeks ago, and he's like, "Jokic just gave me space," and I was like, "I'm gonna take it." Like teams are just giving him space. They're sagging off.
Yeah.
Teams are doubling him more than ever. Teams are packing the paint against him. So I guess this is his kind of counter to that of like, okay, if you're gonna sag off on me and send multiple defenders in the paint and make my life hard with those kind of mid-range paint shots, then I'm just going to take this open three if you're going to do that. And he's proven that he can hit it. Our team's not like jumping out at him and contesting that three. No, and I'm sure that they won't even start doing that in the playoffs probably. They're probably going to dare him to continue taking those shots.
Yeah.
But he's not going to shoot 70% on them like he's done the past few weeks. But if he could hit 35 to 37% at this point at like 2 attempts a game, you kind of live with that, right? Especially if teams are giving it to him. So I think it's a mixed combination of like so many people shooters being out, and two, kind of him realizing like the way defenses are guarding him now, that's a quality shot for him if teams are leaving him open to take it.
Yeah, I have to imagine, that like eventually he got confident, right? He took the one against Denver, and then couple of days later hits the three against Detroit, right? To win that game. And if he misses that shot against Denver, the Detroit one obviously was the end of the game, so it was like, it
kind of forced into
get there. Yeah. But so he hit. I'm looking at his game log now. He hit the one against Denver, then one against Detroit a couple of days later, and then the game winner against Detroit 2 days after that, and then goes 2 for 2 against Philly the next day. That's a 5 for 5 run. If he goes 1 for 5, maybe
it stops. Yeah.
Fails on it, right? But again, this is probably good because we've said all along, like, there's no reason he shouldn't be at least he's a guy who should probably always be taking at least one a game, especially
1 or 2,
especially because it's not like he's a guy who's only touching the ball. He touches the ball at the top of the key a lot because of all the dribble handoff stuff they do. So. It's a real weapon, even if he only takes 1 or 2 a game.
Yeah. And Eric Spoelstra noted that, like, I think Bam has hit a couple corner threes during the stretch, but for the most part, all of his attempts, all of his makes have come from above the break.
Yeah.
That's the shot he's going to get because he works so much from above the break.
Bam in the corner.
In the corner, no. He runs. I mean, he runs so much of the offense from like the top of the key, right? So and also as a trailer, like some of his threes have come kind of in semi-transition, like he's the last one up, and Terry Rozier just kind of dumps it off to him.
There's no like more aesthetically pleasing
trailing three
than a trail three.
Yeah, that kind of just in rhythm,
guy, like a power forward. Yeah. When I was at Syracuse, this guy James Sutherland. Did he play for the Heat at one point? James Sutherland.
I don't think so. I think
maybe the Hornets. He kicked around in the NBA for a little bit, and he was just like didn't really do anything except be 6'9" and shoot threes. And they always
it's good enough.
Trail threes with him. Dion.
Yeah. Dion. No, it's a really, again, it's not going to change the Heat, like the Heat's offense at this point. Like it's good. But I just think it's more of a long-term thing, like more of a positive long-term development that this is this has begun. I think like this is only gonna become a bigger part of his game probably over the years. Like I don't know if he's gonna ever take 8 a game probably, but in 2 years, would it be surprised if he takes 4 a game, like 4 threes a game? I don't think so, right? Especially if he's making him like a 36, 37%. It's just another.
Sometimes big guys do this. Sometimes big guys do this too, where they're like not a shooter at all, and then at some point in their career, all of a
Brook
sudden.
Lopez.
Yeah, Brook. I was about to pull up his basketball reference page because I think at
I don't
some
think he'll
point,
ever be like Brook Lopez or just like shooting threes all
well,
the time.
yeah,
But
because
like,
that's not his like.
no.
That's Brook Lopez. I mean, well, Brook Lopez used to be a really good post player, obviously, but yeah. So Brook Lopez went from his entire career, his first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons, he shot 0 threes. And then the next 3 years, he shot, this is per game, 0.1, 0.1, 0.2. And then the next year, 5.2. So,
Yeah,
like,
sometimes it
it
just happens
happens
that
to
way.
big men
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, there's been some interesting things too. Like, I think this is because they're missing so many spacers, but there's been some possessions where like Bam is spacing in the corner, like he's standing in the corner,
Yeah,
kind of like with his hands like he's waiting for a pass. It's like I've never seen Bam do
I
that,
know.
and I don't.
And
Again, I
again,
don't think that's
you
like
don't want that. I mean,
no,
obviously,
you
come
don't want
playoff
that.
time, it's not going to happen, but I
No,
don't want that ever.
no, it's just that's not the best use, like the most efficient use of Bam's skill set of just him standing in a corner waiting for the catch and shoot. Like, but that's where this team is at this
Right.
point. Like, Bam is a spacer. By the way, before we end this episode, it's been a very positive 30 minutes for the Heat because when we started this, Philadelphia was winning against
Oh.
they lost at the last second to the
Oh
Clippers
yeah,
by
I'm looking
1
at the
point.
schedules. Wow.
So the Heat now has a half a game lead over Philly.
Are we ready to
With
call what's going on in Chicago also?
Chicago, as I was saying, and Chicago has pulled away from the Pacers. They're up by 20. They're up by 23
21.
points.
Oh, 23. You're ahead
With
of me.
4 minutes left in the game. So the Heat will fall, and I'll be just one game back, and kind of, I think even in the loss column, with the Pacers. So it's a productive night for the Heat. Productive off night for the Heat. They gain ground on both of those teams.
Yeah. Anything else? We spent more time talking about Bam's 3-point shooting than I expected, but I enjoyed that digression.
Yeah, we didn't have an episode last week, so we kind of had to.
That's true. Yeah, we hadn't talked about it. I guess that's right.
We had to cover it. So we'll see if I think it's going to continue. I don't think again. I don't know if we'll shoot every game.
What about Jovic? When this team's fully healthy, you think he's not going to be doing as much, but do you think he's at the point where he's going to be in this playoff rotation? He's going to be an important part of what they're doing.
I'm not ready to say that with 100%. I don't. Some days I'm like I just don't see it. I think he's going to be a good player.
I guess that's the problem. Is he is still inconsistent, and you could see him potentially like playing a lot early in a series and then like have a bad
and then
game
being phased out.
And being like, all right.
I kind of think he's one of those players like if he doesn't start, he probably won't play much. You know?
Yeah.
I think Eric Spoelstra likes him in the lineup with Bam and Jimmy. Like he likes Jovic playing with like really good players because it helps make Jovic better and makes his job easier, you know? And I also think he likes the way Jovic complements Bam and Jimmy. So if he's not starting in that lineup, I could see him maybe not even being in the rotation at all. But at this point, I can't say like I wouldn't be surprised if we started in game 1 of the playoffs because he started now for the past month or more than a month. So maybe Eric Spoelstra has been known to kind of make a switch at the start of the playoffs. Like Goran places Kendrick Nunn in the starting lineup after Goran's been the 6th man all season, the year of the bubble. So you could see like him just moving Caleb Martin into the starting lineup and putting Jovic back to the bench, like to start the playoffs, and is going with the veteran. But I have a feeling that they'll at least start the playoffs with Jovic as a starter, and then kind of see how it goes from there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else before we close things out here?
No, I think we covered it. Next week we should have a better read on where things stand. I hope.
We'll see. Have you been watching any the tournament?
No.
No?
I have not. This is like the first year I have not watched much of the tournament. I watched the one game I watched most of was the Florida Colorado game. And not just because I went to the University of Florida. It was just like one of those like it was a time where like just watch the game. Yeah, it just so happened to be. That was a good game. I mean, it was a high scoring game. Like Florida could not.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, that's the SEC this year. I didn't watch that much during the regular season, but I guess that's been the SEC's rep all year. Is no one plays any defense. I gotta say, Colorado lost the other day. Kind of really like that team. They got like Tristan Da Silva. That dude can ball.
Yeah, they had some good. Definitely offensive players. Like a bunch of guys who could just put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, their point guard KJ Simpson's good.
That a big
I
guy was really good. Like just like
the actual 44, the
yeah,
center,
yeah, yeah.
Lampley. Yeah, I liked him. I like some good big guy set. That's the one thing you still get in college basketball that you don't get in the
The
NBA.
traditional center, like just rumbling center. Yeah,
Yeah, the like big like a guy who would
yeah,
have been a power forward in like 1998. Um,
yeah.
I don't know if you've watched any NC State at any point in the because they obviously had the crazy run in the ACC tournament too, but they've got their big center DJ Burns, who's
Oh yeah, no,
absolute
I have seen
delight.
him. I think I
So
saw him play UM one game or something this year. I don't.
yeah,
Did he?
just at some point this year. I mean,
Yeah,
they would have.
yeah,
They're in the same conference, so
yeah. It sounds familiar. I mean, we've talked about this, but I know this is kind of the beauty of it. That it's so kind of it's a flawed game, but man, it's so hard for me to watch college basketball. Like it's like a different sport. It's like
it
a
is.
different sport.
My take is always the NBA is a different sport because
It
college
is.
basketball
It's
looks
just
so much
different.
more like every other level of basketball you watch
Yes.
anywhere in
And
the
that's part of
world.
the appeal. I understand. But
Yeah,
when you watch so much NBA
I
basketball,
know.
and then you turn on that, and it's like this is like watching paint dry. Again, I understand that's the appeal of it. But I'm just not used to it, so it's like very different.
So you have no mid first round draft pick takes.
No, not yet. I'm not there
You
yet.
know who's he might not fall that far, but and he's not in the tournament, but is kind of considered a potential lottery prospect this year. Is Devin Carter,
That's
who
Anthony Carter's son?
is Anthony Carter's son.
Really? I didn't know he was
He
that good.
yeah he was I mean he was a star down here
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
at Doral. I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
Raw
he went to
Academy, yeah.
Doral and then to Brewster. And what started South Carolina, I think it was like pretty good, not incredible. And then transferred to Providence and
He's averaging 20. He averaged 20 points a game this
yeah,
year.
he was good, pretty good last year, and then like really broke out this season. Was like a all conference guy, and it's gonna be an interesting draft because it's gonna be a lot of guys in their 20s, like in their 22s,
Mhm.
23 taken after the I don't know, even maybe like Dalton Connect from Tennessee is like kind of projected as a potential top 10 pick, and that's like a fourth or fifth year senior at Tennessee. So Carter's an older guy, but he's gonna certainly be a first round pick. And yeah, I'm not saying that he's a guy that Heat will definitely should take even necessarily, but another we've talked about the rise of Florida basketball on here a lot, and there's another good one.
Yeah, I mean, I know Anthony Carter's not a Heat assistant coach anymore. Now he's with Memphis, but there's a few Heat assistant coaches like with really good
Oh yeah,
sons.
Jet Howard. Well,
Jet Howard and also Malik Allen's son. I think he's a 4-star.
Oh yeah,
prospect
he's
at
Dante Allen at Riviera, or he was at
Riviera Prep.
Riviera.
He is. I think he's still at Riviera Prep. I think they won back-to-back state titles this
Yeah,
year.
I was there up for their state championship last year, and he was. I don't know if he was their best guy last year, but yeah,
He was. No, I
like,
wrote a story on him last year with Malik.
He's gonna be really
He was
good.
the best guy.
Yeah,
He's a 4-star kid. He has already offers from Michigan, Villanova, Arkansas. Like he's legit. 6'3", 210.
Yeah, he's like a power guard. Like that's my only.
Yeah.
I don't know what he is necessarily, but he's good. I know he's good.
Yeah. So there's a few.
What class is that? 26?
25. So he's gonna be a senior next year.
You know, what prospect I'm excited for. Speaking of former NBA players,
he's the 10th ranked prospect in Florida next year. Yeah.
You know what? This class of 2026, the number 4 player in the country, Elijah Arenas, Gilbert Arenas' son.
Oh,
that's who I'm excited about.
Where has the Boozer? We've got a huge tangent here. Have the Boozer twins committed yet?
Not yet. They still have another. They're 25 also, so they've got another year. Yeah, Cam he's number 2 now. Someone passed him.
That's surprising.
I don't know. I just kind of assume they'll go to Duke, but who knows?
Yeah. These days, you never.
Or they'll figure out some. Well, the G League Elite.
That ended. Right.
They shut that down. So
yeah.
We'll see what happens. The fact that NIL exists now means I think guys.
We'll stay at Miami.
Much maybe. I mean, they'll definitely be in the mix. I think, but. I don't know. A couple of years ago, when they won their first state championship when they were freshmen, I covered it up in Lakeland, and Carlos Boozer was not in attendance because he was at Coach K's last game. when they lost to North Carolina. The one at last game at Cameron. So
yeah.
Kind of makes me think that
That's a rough conflict for Mr. Boozer.
And then Duke, of course, lost that game to North Carolina.
He probably regretted it immediately and said, I should have gone to Lakeland instead.
Yeah.
when Duke lost.
All right. We can close things out there. You can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chang. I got anything coming for us? Obviously, it's day by day, I assume, for you right now.
Stay tuned for injury reports.
Yeah, that's the story.
That's basically my job these
world.
days.
Yeah. Follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. We'll be back next week. Like you said, hopefully we'll have a little clearer picture of where things are going. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more March Madness. Obviously, some big games this weekend. And yeah, I think that's it. Maybe some guys will be healthy. Maybe we can talk about something other than injuries for once.
And a Panthers minute. We'll bring back the Panthers.
Panthers minute. Yeah. A little bit of a slump for them after
not a
last
great
time we
stretch
talked. They were really on fire. So but they built themselves a nice little cushion, I think. So all right. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.